What's up, addicts? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we are talking Hunter Henry, tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers, giving you guys a look at what we expect from Hunter Henry in 2020. But before we get started, please hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. We're posting Fantasy Outlook videos for every relevant player across all 32 teams, so make sure you check those out as well. Also, check out our website, fantasyaddictionnetwork.com, for a full list of rankings to see where these guys all match up. But let's take a look at Hunter Henry. Now, last year was a pretty decent year for him in terms of final outlook. He missed weeks 2 through 5 due to a tibia plateau fracture, which was a bit of a bummer, especially after coming out really strong in week 1. He's had quite a few injuries, and while he did finish the season strong, he's really racking up that injury total, which is pretty typical for tight ends. Tight ends do take a beating, and we're seeing that from a lot of these guys around this age. Evan Ingram is another name that comes to mind that just can't seem to play a full 16 games. But if we recall, that's how Travis Kelce started his career as well. Robert Gronkowski was still missing games for the majority of his career. So this is just a thing that tight ends do. It kind of sucks because it definitely caps their upside and makes you nervous about drafting them. But I do really like Hunter Henry as a player. Chargers franchise tag him over the offseason, so he's not going anywhere, and most likely going to sign him to a long-term deal pretty soon. I think when you observe teams in the different conferences, they typically try to mimic what the best team in their conference is doing. We saw that with the Raiders going after Henry Ruggs, trying to replicate what the Chiefs are doing with Tyreek Hill. Well, the Chargers are in that division too, and they're seeing what the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce, and they don't want to let Hunter Henry go. They want him to be a pretty stable piece of this offense, especially with Justin Herbert coming on board as their new quarterback of the future, and give him a stable option there at the tight end position. So last year he finishes the season with a respectable 55 receptions and 652 receiving yards and a total of 5 touchdowns. Even though he missed 4 games, that was still good enough to put him as a tight end 1, finishing 9th at the position with 150.2 fantasy points and finished with 12.5 fantasy points on average. When we look at his game by game stats, has the injury coming right away, but comes right back against Pittsburgh, who honestly was playing lights out at defense at this point, and still he was able to put up 30 points. That was his only top 3 performance of the season, but he had a couple more tight end 1 weeks and a few stinkers in week 13 and 15. But for the most part, you were pretty satisfied with what Hunter Henry was able to do, staying above 10 points on the majority of weeks from that point on. So finishes the year pretty strong. Again, nothing crazy exciting other than that 30-point game. He didn't really blow up at all, but he's very solid, very consistent, receiving a steady stream of targets every single week, and was really heavily involved in the game plan. And when you look at what the Chargers have done in the offseason, they haven't really done anything to address the pass catchers. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry are still going to be the main guys outside of the running backs. We don't really know how the division of targets is going to go with Philip Rivers. There was over a 30% target share towards the running back, which probably can't expect that to continue with either Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert, so that could actually lead to more targets for Hunter Henry. And if he can play a full season, he's most likely going to finish around tight end 5, tight end 6. So that should be good, right? But we know that tight ends can be very fickle. So obviously changing a quarterback is going to make things difficult for him to repeat some of the success that he's seen. But it could also be positive if he's able to turn things around and actually see a higher target share than he had seen previously. Last year, only 18.1% target share. That was only 10th best amongst tight ends. If the offense shifts a little bit more away from the running backs receiving such a high volume of targets, and we see an increase in targets to Hunter Henry, no one would really be surprised by that. He's taken a step forward in each consecutive year of his career in turning up his efficiency metrics, with the exception of the year he was out, obviously. And then last year also had a pretty good year in terms of yards per reception, finished with 11.9, 11th best at the position, still in the top 12. Yards per target, 8.6. He had the highest target quality rating of all qualifying tight ends, and finished with a decent target accuracy rating of 7.5, true catch rate 82.1%. That was a bit lower at 23, so could still see a little bit of improvement in terms of making more with the targets that he does receive. But overall, it's not that hard to project Hunter Henry to see a little bit more volume. And if he's able to play a full 16 games and he becomes a focal point of that offense that doesn't really have a lot of playmakers in the pass catching role, Hunter Henry definitely has top 5 tight end upside. Are we projecting that? Not necessarily. There's a lot of ambiguity in this offense, and you're taking a lot of risk if you have to draft him early. But if he falls to like round 8 or 9, I'm definitely open to taking a shot at Hunter Henry if some of the other tight ends go way earlier and he seems to fall. That would probably be why I would end up targeting him. Right now we have him projected for about 60 receptions, about 700 yards, and 6 total touchdowns. That would give him a little bit of boost from what he saw last year at 162.7 fantasy points. We don't see an incredible amount of upside just because we don't anticipate this being an explosive offense. So unless they completely shift gears and make Hunter Henry the focal point or something happens to Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, it would be hard to imagine a world where Hunter Henry is receiving the type of targets that would make him an elite producer at the position. But he could definitely be serviceable enough that you're comfortable starting him every week, which is honestly saying a lot when you consider how terrible the tight end landscape is every single year. And again, this is another year where it looks like it's going to be promising. You have all these up and coming guys between Mike Gesicki and Jonnu Smith and Blake Jarwin and Ian Thomas that everyone's excited about. And it could just turn into another year where there's only a couple tight ends that you really like and everyone else is pretty much boom bust every single week. So if you can get a guy that's actually pretty stable, scoring about 10 fantasy points per game, that might end up being the strategy if you're not able to get one of those elite guys or hit on the one guy that breaks out later on. So I do like Hunter Henry. I do think his upside is a bit capped, but I think that he'll have a pretty solid season and will return value if you're able to get him around the 8th round or later. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been our outlook for Hunter Henry, and we'll be doing more videos like this for all 32 NFL teams, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for more. We'll see you guys in the next video.